the decision to withdraw from the nuclear deal. The U.S. is withdraw, and the U.S. embassy. No, but we'll get into a little more detail, and also the embassy move.
So both of these things are great. So these are the two best things that I think Trump has done, aside from maybe Justice Gorsuch. The move on the Iran deal is excellent because the Iran deal was a disaster from the get-go. It essentially allowed Iran to maintain its nuclear weapons materials at current status, or maybe slightly reduced status. It allowed them to keep all of their documents so that they could revitalize their nuclear program on a moment's notice, which they were planning on doing in 2025. It allowed them, under the terms of the deal, without breaking the deal, to develop intercontinental ballistic missiles. It allowed them to continue to use American money to fund terrorism around the world. It allowed them to continue their expansionism in Lebanon and Syria. It allowed them to threaten Israel, and do all of that with the approval of the West and the United States. Okay, the Iran deal was a disaster. It was based on a lie. It was based on the lie that Iran was going to moderate. They obviously were not going to moderate. They had no intention on moderating, and you can see that because the day after Trump dumps the nuclear deal, they're up in Parliament burning American flags and shouting "Death to America." These look like the real moderates right here. These are moderates we were supposed to appease. So pulling out of the deal makes perfect sense to me. It makes perfect sense also not only because the deal was bad, but also because what the deal really did is it prevented Israel and Saudi Arabia and Egypt and Jordan from doing anything about Iran. Because if there would be an attempt to do anything militarily about Iran's burgeoning nuclear facilities, then Israel would be seen as the killer of the deal. Right? But now that the deal is dead, Israel can work with Saudi Arabia and hopefully take out some of Iran's military facilities for developing these sorts of weapons, which I think is probably what's going to happen next. That needed to happen, and it's very good that it happened, and good for President Trump for doing it. Moving the embassy to Jerusalem, it's a no-brainer. There's no reason it shouldn't have been done earlier. Congress approved that. Everybody's on Trump's case about this. It was approved by Congress like 93-0 in 2016, by the Senate, 93-0. So it's been an uncontroversial proposition until Trump actually did it, at which point everything Trump does becomes controversial, even when it's obvious that it should have been done long ago. Obviously, Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. The only reason anyone gives a damn about Jerusalem in the history of the world is because the Jews were there. Okay, otherwise it was a city no one cared about forever. Okay, the Christians care about it because the Jews were there first. The Muslims care about it because the Jews were there first. Okay, this is just history. Okay, Judaism predates both of those, and Jerusalem was a holy city long before either of those two religions existed. So it is just insanity not to have the embassy in Jerusalem. It's like if Israel just decided to put their embassy randomly in Los Angeles instead of Washington, D.C. You don't get to decide where somebody else's capital is. It's idiotic. So good for Trump for doing both of those things. And also, this idea that there was going to be this wild conflagration and the nuclear war is going to break out because Trump moved the embassy, obviously stupid, obviously idiocy. The weirdest thing about the last several years in foreign policy is that Barack Obama tried to forward Iran's ambitions, and what he actually ended up doing was creating an anti-Iranian alliance that now includes Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Jordan, and Israel. Right? Saudi Arabia is making noises about Israel that no one ever thought they would make. Right? Mohammed bin Sultan, who's the new leader of Saudi Arabia, he's openly saying to the Palestinians, sit down and shut up. Right? Either take the deal or sit down and shut up. I mean, that's an amazing thing. Right? They're openly allying with Israel now. That's solely due to the rise of Iran. Now, maybe it goes away after Iran stops rising, but for the moment, that's absolutely necessary. I mean, Iran is a serious threat to the region of the world.